Hey, we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and we're at Circuit World here in Blue Ridge every Friday morning. We broadcast the show here. It's now time for Ask the Doc with Dr. William Whaley. We want to thank Georgia Cancer Specialists for always providing this segment. Dr. Whaley, how are you today?
I'm great. Yourself?
Well, I got to open up. You have International Flag Tie Day here. I always have to ask the question.
On my pink shirt. So this is my equivalent for Friday red.
Okay. We'll go with that.
And these are the people in the world who've told us to go stuff it. And true. And all week long, our presidents made me happy. Okay. And we pulled them out. Last week, I was saying we pulled some money away from Pakistan. We're pulling more money away from Pakistan. And you know what happened in Pakistan about 48 hours ago? Sam, what happened in Pakistan 48 hours ago? They had a bombing that killed a bunch of people in a suburb of Kabul. Well, that's not new news, is it? There's 79 one week, there's 80 one week, there's 48 got hurt the week before that. And who usually does that, Sam?
Their own people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the Taliban.
Right.
This was a lone wolf. They got the first lone wolf that they're aware of in Pakistan. And he was a Pashtun, and the neighborhood where he lived, the police had come in and arrested the local 7-Eleven guy who, they
right.
selling, like here might be selling lottery tickets under the table or have one of those slot machines in the back room or something, a little off. But every 7-Eleven in Pakistan sells drugs and will sell ammunition and everything. And they made him an example, an ethnic example, since the Pashtuns and the Kurds, they don't like too much. So Leroy took it on himself to go blow up the police station. So anyway, now they've got lone wolves, and so do we.
Okay.
How's that for starting to ask the doc?
Well, I think I started that with your international flag.
I want to do this.
All right.
I came in this morning, and I always give Sam a hug, everybody a hug, but I'm not hugging anybody, and we're recommended not to shake hands with anybody. And why is that, Sam?
Because germs.
Germs. Flu epidemic is kicking us really bad, and it was announced on Monday that the flu epidemic in the South, the Midwest and the Southwest is particularly hard, that the flu shot can still be effective. It's not going to eliminate this new fancy one. What is it? H3N2. It sounds like a government label. 80% of these cases of flu, and they're having to use adjacent auditoriums and stuff in California and Arizona because the emergency rooms don't have room for the people. So when you come in and you're sick in some towns in California and Arizona, they put you on your little gurney and they run you down to the auditorium where they teach the nurses and everything because the epidemic's so bad. That brought us back to last week when we talked about the difference between the flu and the flu-like illness. And didn't you tell me you went home yesterday and hit the rack because you had a cold? Yeah. So right now, if you got the flu-like illness, if you've got a temperature that gets over 101, if you really feel like you were beat up with a baseball bat, if you have teeth rattling chills and stuff, you have got a window of 48 hours to get to your private doc or get to the ER and get on antiviral flu medication. And the supply of that flu medication is a little bit sketchy in Arizona and California, but I'm told we have it here. So if you're like you were yesterday, go home. If you work for a living and are doing heavy work like in a factory or something, you should stay home until you get well. If you're talking on television and sitting on a couch, I guess you can come back to work and not affect too many people. But I really don't want people to make light of the fact that, yes, there's lots of viral things here that aren't serious, and you had one yesterday. But if your temperature goes above 101.5, if you have a teeth rattle and chill and then a fever and a sweat, and if you feel like you were beat up with a baseball bat, don't stay home. Go to the ER and get on your medicine because the fatality rate of this is pretty high. It's mostly young people under the age of 10 and I hate to say old people over the age of 60 since I'm way above that, but that's who it is. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so there is our there's our local flu update.
Yeah.
And-
Well, national flu update too.
Let's start with our first question.
All right.
Can a stressful event cause a physical illness?
Well, basically, the answer to the question is yes, but this is such a serious question that I spent more time thinking about how to approach this question than I think I've ever done on any question we've ever had. Because it's sort of a casually asked question, but it has several layers that I think are very important. First of all, what is stress? And what is a stressful event? Sam might say this, I work for this guy, and if he doesn't change the way he treats me, I'm going to have an ulcer. Well, that's a stressful work environment. And a stressful work environment can cause hyperacidity in the stomach. You can have an ulcer. The ulcer can penetrate the wall of the stomach. You can bleed, and you can die. So if you stop and think about that, that's simple. You don't do that because you go down to the CVS or the Walmart or something and you buy yourself an antacid, you get rid of the stomachache. But that high blood pressure, jaw pain, temporal mandibular joint because you're chronically stressed and you're doing this all the time, muscle contraction, tension, headache. If you're really stressed, you can have a tachycardia, and then you breathe deep, you think my heart's going bad, and you have chest pain. All of those things we know are chronic reactions of certain personality types to life stresses. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think there were people that would say that you and I are of a certain personality type. Sam, what would that be? Personality type A. Yes, you're right, Sam. Now, I don't think anybody I've seen on your couch or anything else is a type B personality. But the type B personality is laid back, they don't have a lot of drive. Type A is good. Stress is good. That's why people that are disadvantaged go to night school and bring themselves up a rung at a time. But type A personalities and people with a stressful life actually have a higher incidence of coronary heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, and heart attack and stroke than their contemporaries who have exactly the same height, weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, and job who have a type B personality. So the stressful job and the stressful personality actually induces a biochemical reaction that increases endothelial damage in your vessels and increases atherosclerosis. You say, wow, you're trying to tell me that my mind can make me have a harder artery in my heart? And the answer to the question is yes. Well, how do you prove that? Sam, how do you prove that? Okay, you're doing experiments. You're right. So what they did...
I didn't study for any of your tests.
Sam, you're supposed to study. Okay, so what do? If you want to do an experiment on people, who's the closest to people? Monkeys, right? All right, so you got a whole bunch of monkeys who share 97 or 98 point something or other percent of the genes with us, and you feed those monkeys for 2 years an equally bad high-fat diet. That's burgers and fries and stuff, okay? So for 2 years, these monkeys have the same adverse diet. Now you break them into two groups.
Hold on. So the monkey's eating burgers and fries.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good with this story. Keep going.
Okay. Monkeys are eating burgers and fries. And some of them are overweight, guys. Overweight these monkeys get. All right, now, you break those monkeys into two groups. I didn't pick any person individually, did I? And this is true for males and females. The estrogens did not protect the females. And you divide them into two groups. And one group stays in their stable environment where they can play with their stuff and everything else. And the other group, what they do is every 1 month to every 3 months, All they do is move them from one social group of monkeys to another social group of monkeys so that they don't have quite as much stability. They don't put them under any sort of stress, make them run a treadmill, earn a living. They don't shock them or anything. So the only stress they're getting is the psychosocial stress of moving into a new family.
Okay.
And they're in that family a month to 3 months. Then, over a period of several years, that group, both of these are equal to start with, gets more heart disease and stroke. Okay, now that's just a background for stress in general. The question was, and I want you to read it one more time if you got it there.
Can a stressful event is maybe the key word in there, cause a physical illness?
You got it. All right, now here is the big deal.
So you're saying what you were just describing is
life,
is diet and environment they were in, and I understand
psychological long-term stress.
Long-term, but now we're talking about an event.
You're the bad boss, and she gets an ulcer.
Yeah.
Or you're working 14 hours a day, and you get high blood pressure or something else. So this was an event, and it's very important to focus attention on the question, because I would love to know I'd love to talk to the questioner. But everybody in this room knows what PTSD is.
Right.
PTSD, Sam, listen carefully, is post-traumatic stress disorder. What does trauma mean, Sam? It means you have an event. Now, our thought is, because we see the wounded warrior things on TV all the time, that event has to be a physical event, like an IED or you get shot or whatever. But much of the PTSD that comes out of the military is not physically being shot or blown up. It's the psychic stress of perhaps being back at the base and your fraternity brother got killed. So that's a loss. That's a traumatic loss event. If you have if your spouse or your mother, your father has cancer or heart disease and they're sick for a while and they die, you have a loss. That loss puts you in that sort of chronic stress thing. That's not generally the kind of acute event that would cause what's called acute stress disorder. Now, acute stress disorder is limited to 4 weeks in duration. And the type of events that can happen there are, you can get fired unexpectedly. You came into work one morning and you were fired. There's nothing physical about that. Everybody here has lost a job at one time or another. But if you were just fat and sassy and minding your own business and it was particularly traumatic, then you can be in the acute stress disorder. And most of us, particularly males, and particularly males who were born and raised in a southern environment, they're supposed to stuff it. They're supposed to get over it. Quit crying. The Eagles have a song, "Get Over It." You don't want to go on disability or complain or sue somebody. But that acute stress disorder, if it becomes particularly severe, you need to go see your family doc or your local priest or whatever. Medication's not the answer. There are people, though, who have a sudden loss. Let's say you came home and you found your house blown up and your wife and all your children are blown up. I mean, that's a big-time stress. And yes, a benzodiazepine to calm you down for 2 to 3, 4 weeks is okay. I'm not talking about quite that big a stress reaction. But other than that, it's what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, which comes at $450 an hour when it's given to you by a psychotherapist, that comes free when it's given to you by the priest, the preacher, or your best friend. So that acute stress disorder that lasts 4 weeks, if it is not appropriately handled, if you don't get a chance to grieve or get it out of you, the PTSD that we've talked about so much is the next step in the flow. And generally, PTSD isn't diagnosed at week 5. It's diagnosed at week 100, a year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. So an acute stress event does not cause the high blood pressure, the peptic ulcer disease, the atherosclerosis, and all those other things that I introduced this segment with. The acute stress disorder causes the behavioral long-term disease of post-traumatic stress. And it can just as well happen to a young woman like Sam as it does to somebody who's a combat victim. But the stress would be different. And as I say, it could be violence. I have had family members and numerous staff members who have had either rape or sexual assault, not by a date, but by out on the street. Then the second category is my friend, my date rape thing, or the trainer and the doctor to the Olympic team, the U.S. Olympic team, that type of sexual assault. It can be an accident. My wife almost got herself killed about 15 years ago because she wanted a cup of coffee and turned in front of a car and had a huge automobile accident, and it's been a traumatic event for her. It can be something like that. So loss of job, sudden death of somebody unexpected, some sort of a violent event or an assault, that occurs to normal people. So we don't have to be thinking about the acute stress and PTSD only in the military or in the first responders or the police. Is that enough, Sam? You think I've gone far enough with that question? I just want people to know that that's a real serious question, and that chronic stress and high blood pressure and ulcers are a different category altogether. Go ahead.
Well, we have two more questions, and these maybe we can get through quickly so we can get both in.
Quickly? I got all day. Go ahead. She won't let me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can allergies cause me to have an issue with my vision?
Sam, show the eye picture, please. Well, first of all, allergies can do almost anything, but I gave Sam two things. The first one, is it up yet, Sam? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you look carefully at this picture, the people who've got a view screen there, you've got a red eye. If the allergy is causing that in both eyes, you don't get allergies in one eye only. Let me go one more step with that. An eye that looks like that, if it's one eye only, is a medical emergency. And that goes to your doctor and to the ER. If you wake up in the morning and you got that in both eyes, and your nose is a little stuffy, then that picture actually there is allergic conjunctivitis, which makes your eye generally red. It does not interfere with your vision unless it's just a mucoid thing from the allergy going across your eye. Now, Sam, go to the chart. Okay. Now, you won't be able to read the details of this chart, but the chart spread is the months of the year, January to December. And then the bands that are in the middle of that chart are different portions of the United States. So if you can just look on there, Sam, can you see the one that says the South? Is it big enough to see that?
No.
Not? Okay, how many lines down is South? About 3?
Yes.
Okay, if you look at the colors going across that chart, there's only about a month and a half or 2 months of the 12 months of the year that we don't have actual significant allergens that are in the air in this part of the country. And so the answer to the question is definitely yes. It's not just a spring and a fall event, and it can affect your eyes and your vision.
Let's go to our last question of the morning for Dr. Whaley. I have noticed several blemishes and new moles on my skin. How often should a person get a skin cancer check?
Okay, there's two questions there. The first question is, I've noticed on myself a couple of lesions. That's one question. If you've got something on your skin that is persistent, doesn't go away in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, seems to change, is clearly not a zit, or you haven't got a splinter in there, it's not left over from poison ivy, you go see your family doctor. Now, the second part of that question is basically the question. Do you need to have a skin cancer check? And if so, how often? Well, first of all, you're going to love to know that health insurance and Medicare and Medicaid and everybody else does not pay for what is called a skin cancer check. Federal health insurance, Obamacare, Medicare, and Medicaid is required to pay for preventive testing, which includes colonoscopy, mammography for a well-defined group, immunizations, flu shot, pneumonia shot, shingles shots, or if you fit the criteria. But they will not pay for a cancer skin inspection. So, the American College of Dermatology, or American Academy of Dermatology, has a recommendation that varies with your family history. And a child should be inspected in the skin sometime in their teenage years if they have no lesions whatsoever. People that are lightly complected, like everybody in this group here that was raised in the South and has sun damage, sometime in their 20s should have a total body skin inspection. I've had about 15 cancers, and I have to have one every 3 months. So it's family history, personal history, where were you raised, and if you think that insurance is going to pay for it, you're going to be really sorely disappointed. So the American Academy of Dermatology says adults over age 25 should go every year, and I can't follow that. Nobody else does. Nobody else recommends that. The American College of Physicians doesn't recommend that. The federal guidelines don't recommend that. But if you're lightly complected, if you were raised in the South and have had sun damage, those go one time and then go at the frequency that the dermatologist tells you. So there's no easy answer to that question. Now, Sam, show the next one. What you're going to see here now is, what's that thing look like, Sam? It's a pigmented mole. It's a pigmented mole that's got several variations in color. It's got irregular margins around the outside. It could have been on your back or your cheek or somewhere for years, and it's begun to change a little. It's a little larger. It's got more irregular borders, or some of that's beginning to fade. That's not a routine skin cancer inspection. That's a early stage malignant melanoma, 100% curable. I've had one just like it. And that, you go see your family doc and he'll send you to the dermatologist, or go straight to the dermatologist. That's enough.
Dr. Whaley, we appreciate it. If you have a question for the doctor here on Friday, you send those to info, I-N-F-O, at fetchernews.com. We will get those to Dr. Whaley, and hopefully we'll get those answers for you on our show on Friday. Again, just when you send it to info, put in the subject line, Ask the Doc. And we'll get that over to Dr. Whaley in the middle of the week. We thank you very much. We thank Georgia Cancer Specialist for this segment. Any closing thought today?
Yes. Thought so. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't like the word climate change, or global warming, but there is a clear-cut human adverse effect on the environment that I think we ought to try and fix. And so I am going to join with the people in Florida who want to get rid of the monkeys in the Silver Spring Park. I also am of agreement that they ought to get rid of the boa constrictors and the pythons in the Everglades.
Okay.
Now, pythons don't belong in this hemisphere. They came there because some guy bought himself a snake, and the thing got so big in his house, his wife made him get rid of it, and he either flushed it down the toilet or he threw out the car window down in Florida, and it took up life in the Everglades. This population of monkeys, that is, people are feeding these monkeys, and people are looking at them in their cars as they drive by, and every time somebody goes fishing down there in the Silver Springs area, they're just covered up with these monkeys. These monkeys have been proven to carry a new virus called herpes B. Well, you'll remember that HIV came out of the monkeys in the trees 30 years ago. Herpes B is not a fever blister. Herpes B is 50 to 70% fatal. That's a big number. That's about like Ebola, isn't it? It is transmitted by monkey to human contact, such as feeding the monkey and letting him reach out and scratch your hand. And those monkeys got into that jungle down there, into that area down there, because people had monkeys as pets. They got to be too much trouble in the house, and they took them and threw them out of the car. So I'm going to join with all of the global warmers and the climate change people who think we've adversely affected the environment only in those two areas, to get rid of the pythons and get rid of the monkeys down there, whatever it takes, because the pythons are eating people's puppies and the monkeys might kill you.
Now, if that's not a closer, I don't know what to do for you. Okay? Do you know how many times we said monkeys today? I just checked.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't have a shirt that says that on it.
No, okay. I'm your host, BKP. We're at Circuit World here in Blue Ridge. We always want to thank Georgia Cancer Specialist for this segment and thank Dr. Whaley again. Send your question to info@fetchyournews.com and put Ask the Doc and we'll get it to him. Right after these messages, it's time for the All-Star Political Panel. We'll be back after this break.
All I do is win, win.